I reached 20k per month for my consulting business while maintaining 80% personal profit. And I went from working 50 hours a week, forcing on sales calls, and relying on an unreliable, pushy acquisition system built on a fragile business, to now working 50% less, serving my clients instead of selling, and building a freedom-based business that supports my lifestyle. And in this video, I will show you exactly how to craft your own lifestyle studio. The whole point is that the business gets built around your life, not the other way around. Because that's the bit nobody talks about, right? Everyone is selling you the bigger business. Nobody's asking what's costing you to build it. When I started this journey, I was running a Done For You agency. You know, the standard classic model, clients pay me, I do the work, content, ads, the whole thing. And it looked fine. If you asked me at a dinner table how the business was going, I would have said it's great. I had a small 3-person team working with people I liked. That's the version of the story I will tell you. But by the time I paid my editor, my setter, and paid for the softwares, all the bits and pieces it took to actually deliver the work and running the business, I was keeping only 50% profit. So externally, it looked like a good small business. But from the inside, it was just like a part-time job. And the main part that really got to me was the disconnection. Because I was creating content about building leverage, about building a business that runs without you, and working smarter, while I was running a high-demand, high-stress business that was doing the exact opposite for my own life. So that gap between what I was saying online and what I was doing in real life in my business, it was massive. I started this whole thing because I wanted more freedom. I wanted to travel and I want to play football on a Wednesday evening with my friends and sit with my family for breakfast without stressing about work or finances. That was my simple dream. And what I actually built was a job, and it was a trap. I tried to fix all of this the way most people do. I raised my prices, I tried to hire more. It didn't really work because everything still needed me to run. I outsourced some bits of it. I tried all the stuff people online tell you to do. It helped a little, but it didn't fix the actual problem. The problem was the model itself. So no matter how many small fixes I made, the engine was still on me and I was burning out. Most people in this space runs their businesses like construction site. They are designed for output. They're optimized for volume, speed, and pressure. They need a steady flow of demand just to keep everything running. And if that demand ever slows down, everything starts to feel unstable. And it doesn't really matter what type of business you've got. It could be an agency, it could be consulting, coaching, any kind of online service. The setup ends up looking the same. What I do now is basically the opposite. And this is where the lifestyle studio idea actually comes from. I stopped running the business like a construction site and start running it like a design studio. So instead of me being on the site, swinging a hammer, I'm back in the studio drawing the plans. And I'm not trying to do every job for everyone now. I'm simply trying to design the right ones really well. Underneath all of this, there are 3 philosophies I believe pretty firmly over the years, and they are what holds the whole thing together for me. So I want to walk you through them. So the first one, build the business around the life, not the life around the business. And I think this is the one that not too many people talk about, maybe because it sounds soft. But for me, it's been the most strategic decision I've ever made for myself because I was doing it the other way around. I built the business first and then I tried to squeeze my life at the end of the week. So there are never enough time left. That's the trick of it. The business will always take whatever you give it. It's like a sponge, it just absorbs everything. So I had to flip it completely. I reverse engineered a business that prioritized things like when I want to relax with my family, when I want to travel, or just even sit in the garden for an hour having a tea. So the business is just a design that fits around my life. Now, the next belief follows on pretty naturally. Quality of clients beats quantity of clients every single time. And these two go hand in hand for me. When I take on a wrong fit clients, they don't just take my time on a call, on a delivery. They take my weekends. They take the peace of my mind on a Sunday afternoon when I'm meant to be relaxing. The wrong clients will drain the exact life I just spent all that effort designing. So picking who I work with is more of a lifestyle decision. I always believe that 5 right clients will always pay me better, refer me better, and cost me a lot less of my life than 15 wrong ones, always. And then the final one, this is the one I see a lot of people get wrong before they even started, including myself. And that is influence through authenticity. And I mean that quite literally, not through pretending to be someone I'm not just because that's what everyone else is doing. I don't need to go rent a supercar because that's just not my goal. And people can feel when you're performing. They might not be able to put it into words, but they can feel it. And the second they feel that you're faking, you already lost them. The way I've built anything that's actually sustainable is just being myself out loud, saying what I think, confidently sharing my beliefs, my opinions about everything. So when I put those three together, I end up with a completely different kind of business. A lifestyle studio shaped around a life I actually want to live. Right, so let's actually get into the model now. There are three parts because that's how I think about it in my head and that's how I run it day to day. And I'm going to try to keep it as simple as I can for you. The first one is your foundation, and I'm not going to tell you it's an irresistible offer. Every video on YouTube says that. So if you're watching this, you've probably already got an offer or some sort of direction. That's not the layer, it's broken. The layer that's actually broken for honestly almost everyone I work with is the layer underneath. And really it's two layers. And that is your identity and your position. These are the bits I see a lot of founders never properly sort out, which is why the offer, why the business feels kind of generic. So identity is who you are in the business, what you actually think, your experiences, your point of view, your taste. It's not personal branding in the ooh sense. It's just the worldview underneath everything you put out into the world. And after being in this industry for years, I can say the majority of people skip this part entirely because identity feels like one of those questions you're meant to figure out in therapy, not in your Notion doc. So instead, what people do is just copy. They watch whoever is blowing up on Instagram and they end up sounding like a worse version of them. They borrow other people's hooks, other people's framework, other people's opinion, because they haven't done the actual work to figure out their own. And the cost of skipping this is bigger than most people think, because identity is the only real way you differentiate. Otherwise, you're competing on the same line as everyone else with the same hooks, same offers, same prices. And in a market this noisy, being the same is just being invisible. Your content and your messaging kind of blends in with everyone else's. And at a certain level, people don't just buy the service, they buy the person behind the service. They buy your point of view, your worldview, the way you actually see things, even how you talk. Because the deliverable themselves are all replaceable. Everyone in this market is offering some version of the same things. But what's not replaceable is the human behind them. So when someone works with you, what they're really paying for is access to how you think, not what you do. So once identity is clear, the position becomes the next layer. So position in simple words is just who you serve and the transformation you take them through. Two things, one specific person, one specific outcome you deliver to them, right? And in my opinion, the reason it only works after identity is sorted is that position without identity is just demographics. You're picking a market and writing it down. For example, I help fitness coaches to grow the business, or I help busy professionals to lose weight. Like, okay, what does that actually mean? It doesn't really say anything because demographics tells you what someone is on paper, not what they actually want from you. And two people from the same demographics can be completely different humans. One is going to resonate with how you think and the other one won't. Demographics can't tell you which is which. However, once identity is locked in, positioning stops being just demographics and becomes who your worldview is actually built for. It filters on the inside, not the outside. And the second component of the lifestyle studio is a designed trust-building ecosystem. This is the layer that connects you to the right people and helps them understand your world before they ever talk or work with you. And I call it the content and conversion ecosystem. And I use the word ecosystem deliberately because in my world, ads, content, and sales aren't three separate things sat in three separate boxes. They are stages of one journey. They feed into each other and they're meant to flow. So instead of giving you a list of 4 steps, I want to walk you through the actual path a person takes from never heard of me before to becoming a client. The journey usually starts with ads, and I normally run ads on Instagram. Also, what I use ads for is control over volume and exactly who I'm putting myself in front of. Because ads that you target with precision, organic content just can't. Organic content is more like broadcast for me. Ads are targeting. They do different jobs. And the ads themselves are not trying to sell anything. That's the bit people get wrong. They try to make every ad close a deal in 24 to 72 hours. And it just doesn't work like that. My ads philosophies are introducing a specific problem and a clear point of view. That's it. The job is to put a thought, an idea in front of someone who's been dealing with that exact problem and have them go, oh, this person sees what I'm dealing with. So I'm not trying to convince anyone to do anything immediately. I'm just trying to attract the people who already see themselves in what I'm saying. So if someone clicks on the ad and comes through as a follower, DM, or comment, the next step is a small discovery step. This usually happens in the DM, and I want to be clear about what this is and what this isn't. It's not a sales conversation. It's not a sales call or anything like that. I'm not trying to close them, as I said earlier. I'm just genuinely trying to understand their business. So what their goals are, what they do, so the services and their struggles. What are they? Where do they feel stuck? Because that conversation tells me a lot. It tells me what stage they're at, and it tells me what they actually need in the next step. And most importantly, it tells me whether this is someone I can genuinely help. Based on that little discovery, if I think this is someone I can genuinely help, I point them towards my long-form content on YouTube. So they can spend a bit more time with me to see how I actually think about all of this. Long-form content works the best because no one goes from not knowing who you are to wanting to invest in working with you after just a few short 1-minute videos on Instagram. Building trust takes time, and people need to go through that process first. I see it as 6 stages people need to go through before they decide to move forward. First, they are unaware and they don't even realize there's a problem. Next, they become desire aware. They feel a pull towards a better life or a better business, but can't quite say what's missing. Then comes symptoms aware, where they notice things like being tired or not earning enough or having a packed week, but they don't know the real cause. After that, they become problem aware and they understand what's really going on. This will lead to solution aware. So they know what kind of solution they need and start looking at different options. Finally, they reach hyper aware, where they know exactly what they want, who they want to work with to achieve that goal, and they are just waiting for the right time to take action. And that's what long-form content does, is take people through those stages. Different content serves a specific purpose in the journey, showing them what the actual path looks like, how I work, and whether they are a good fit. So by the time someone watched maybe 5 hours of my video, they've spent enough time with me. The other thing I run alongside the long-form content is a email channel. It's not a separate path. The way I think about it is long-form videos on YouTube and emails are both doing the same job. They're both nurturing processes. The long-form videos is the deep version where someone sits with an idea for 20 minutes, 30 minutes and gets to know how I think and what I believe. The email is like the lighter version, just keeping the interaction warm in the background. Now, every conversation with different prospects generates something called conversion data. When someone decides to move forward with you, it shows exactly what worked well in the business. Maybe it's the ads, maybe it's the messaging, and maybe it's the contents. And when someone doesn't, that's just as useful. It usually points to the friction. So instead of pushing them and keep pressuring them to make a decision, they just go back into a retargeting loop where they keep seeing my contents and ads clarity and fill in the gaps. And also, I have more information I could use to produce regular contents and keep refining my ecosystem and remove the friction. So if component 2 is how you bring clients in, component 3 is how you actually deliver to them without losing your life in the process. The final component of the lifestyle studio is leveraged delivery, and the way I run it is designed through 3 clear paths. Because without clear delivery paths, even a strong business can become really messy. You end up doing one of 2 things. Either you overextend yourself trying to help everyone the same way, which is how you end up working 50 hours a week again, or you go the other way and build something so rigid that nobody actually fits into it. And then you're losing clients you should have been able to serve. Both of those are ways to break a good business. Lots of people can get the offer and the marketing right, but then they collapse on delivery. So it looks like they're doing everything well. They've got leads coming in, they're signing clients and doing the work. 6 months later, you check in and they're more burnt out than before they started. They are working longer hours and the weekends are gone because the marketing worked so well. They got more clients, which is supposed to be a good thing, right? But every new client just packed more delivery onto a backend that wasn't built to hold it. That's the trap. The better your marketing gets, the better your acquisition gets, the worse your whole operation gets if you don't leverage your delivery. And that was me a couple years ago. So here is about designing the backend. Different paths make sense for different kinds of clients, rather than one default delivery model stretched to fit everyone. And just to be clear before we go in, position is one thing, delivery is another. The position doesn't change across these paths. What changes is how the results actually gets delivered. So here's how I run it through 3 main paths. The first path is a standard classic done for you agency. So in this one, people come directly into my studio to work alongside me. I install the system and run it for them, but it's always built around their life, their constraints, and their goals. And the focus isn't on speed, it's stability. This path is usually a very good fit for people who already know the offer works, have worked with multiple clients, and can deliver amazing results. What they don't want is to personally handle the marketing side of the business anymore. They want to stay focused on what they do best, which is delivering the service and helping more people, without constantly worrying about ads, contents, all of that. So that's where I step in. I come into the business and implement the whole system. I take ownership of the marketing sides, the ads, the core marketing assets, the sales systems. I build the whole thing and I make sure it's built to scale and, more importantly, to keep working over a long term. This partnership runs for a minimum 9 months because the ecosystem doesn't compound in short cycles. And we would have regular meetings for updates, typically once per week. And in-person meetings are something I do occasionally if it's suitable for both sides. One of the things I really believe in and have experienced myself is that results improve when a relationship does. You can do good work with anyone, but you do great work with someone you fully trust. So for me, the relationship is just part of the delivery. The weekly calls definitely are the most important thing, but so do the coffee chats. Because this is a high demand, high touch model, I only work with a small number of clients at a time. I want to keep myself focused, keep my clients focused, and keep all the work at a very high quality. The second path is consulting, done with you. And this is for the people who don't want me to build everything for them. They want to stay closely involved in the work, in the process. They want to understand the systems, make their own decisions. What they don't want is to spend years making avoidable mistakes, guessing every decision, or following generic advice that doesn't actually fit their life or the business. So this is where the consulting path comes in. Instead of me installing the systems for them, the studio becomes a space where they build it themselves with clear direction, clear structure, and someone holding their hands along the journey. They are still doing the work, they are still very involved in the process, they are just not doing it alone. So in this path, my role shifts from execution to direction. This isn't done for you, it's not a course or a group program, it's a private one-on-one consulting relationship focused on fixing the mindset, the structure, and acquisition delivery systems that are holding their business back. My job is to make sure they are building the right things in the right order for the right reasons. And the structure for this path is that we work very closely over 6 months and we have regular meetings twice per month. And between those meetings, they have access to me over WhatsApp or Slack to work through decisions together, get a second perspective, and handle the small issues before it turns into big issues. And the final path is build and release. This path sits between the other two for people who want the system built by me but don't have the 6 months to learn it themselves. And the principle of it is simple. Every business has 2 layers. The layer that can be built for you and the layer only you can build because you're the brand. This path is structured around that line. I build everything that doesn't depend on their face. We start with the foundation, is their positioning, messaging, and their offer, built together so it's sharp before anything goes on top of it. Then I build the full content system, the strategy, the structure, and all the framework they will create inside. And plus the entire ad system gets built and launched, and full conversion infrastructure end to end. Basically the whole path from a stranger seeing your ad to a booked call and then to a conversion. And then I don't just hand the whole thing over and disappear and then never see me again. I stay closely involved in the business for 3 months of one-to-one consulting while they take the wheel. So they've got support while the clients are learning how to run it. So that's how I run my own lifestyle studio through 3 paths. Whichever one they pick, the model itself doesn't change, the structure doesn't change, the transformation doesn't change. What changes is how much of the work clients are doing themselves versus how much they're handing to me. All 3 of these still cost me time. They have to. Don't fool you especially. That's deep, focused work. But what makes it work isn't the hours, it's the volume. I run a small number at once, deliberately, so my calendar looks nothing like the old agency days back in 2023, when I had multiple clients all wanting me at the same time. Now it's only a few partnerships, and consulting is structured around the clients execute themselves with my direction. Build and release has a clear finish line. I do the build, hand it over, and step out. That's what let me deliver on what I sell, because if I had to do every little task, setting every DM for every client, fixing every little thing for every client, this whole thing would fall apart in maybe a month. And I would be back in that exact construction site I built a lifestyle studio to escape. If you just looked at all of this, it probably seems like there's a lot going on, but it's really not. And the easiest way for me to show you is just to look at how things actually move through the business on a day-to-day basis. In the old version of my business, everything started with me. I would be the one scraping lead list, doing cold outreach in the DMs and in their emails, pitching random strangers and hoping enough of them would reply to me to justify the hours I was personally putting in. Most wouldn't. The 5 out of 100 who did usually wanted to negotiate, so the sales call turned into a hard negotiation call. So the ones who ghosted afterwards, I would follow up with them 4 or 5 times. Not because it was the right thing to do, but because the pipeline didn't have anyone else in it. So naturally, my time went wherever the leads needed them to go. Whatever time was left over at the end of all of this, at the end of the week, I was using to film content, write posts, and send them off to my 16-year-old editor, because that was supposed to be the thing that eventually built the inbound side of the business. But it never really did, because it didn't have a system underneath it. It was just me, and I was doing all of it manually because I wanted to save money. The only thing I could relax on was editing because I had an editor. And looking back now, the real problem with all of that was 80% of my energy was going into low leverage tasks. I put hours in on Monday, and the next week I would start from 0 again. So I barely had any time left for the work that actually compounds, things like creating content. In the version of my business I run now, nothing really starts with me anymore. It starts with the ecosystem. The ads attract the right kind of people every day, the DM discovery filters them, and the long-form content builds trust. So by the time someone shows up on a call with me, they already understand how my studio works and how I work, and they already know whether they are a good fit. What I'm doing on that call is just understanding their situation in detail and confirming the decision they've made. and that's it. The only manual stuff left is DM discovery with prospects, because in my opinion, that's the only one part that should stay human. So my time ended up in a completely different place. 80% of my time now goes into deep work, which is creating content, serving my clients, testing out new ideas, and all the stuff that actually needs me, the high leverage stuff that's still working for me 6 months from now. And most importantly, around all of this, there's a life I actually built this for, and that is spending time with my family with a coffee in the morning, sitting there with no laptop on my lap, and go on day trips on the weekend that nobody had to plan 3 weeks in advance. These all sounds so specific because these are all simple things in life I achieved after making this decision, which used to be a huge dream of mine. So my work, my business just feels completely different now. Every quarter this workflow runs, it gets better without me having to put in any extra hours. The content I made 3 months ago is still pulling people in today. The conversation I'm having now will make the videos I'm making next month better. So the stuff I did 6 months ago is still working for me right now, while I'm sitting here recording this video to influence more people instead of logging into some cold outreach software and doing more cold outreach. So that's the whole lifestyle studio model. Now I want to give you something you can actually do with all of this information. I would like you to look at your current business and ask yourself, what work am I doing this week that wouldn't exist if I had an ecosystem like this? And just sit with that for a minute, because most people are so deep in the doing of their business that they never actually step back and ask which part of it shouldn't exist in the first place. They just keep getting better at doing it, which is the trap. You cannot optimize your way out of a model that's built wrong. When you sit with that question for a few days, you will find the leaks. Maybe it's the cold outreach you're still grinding through every Monday morning, or the clients you're babysitting on a Saturday, can be anything. And every leak points at one of those 3 components. And this is the same diagnostic I run on my own business, just more often. The way I keep the system from stalling is Kaizen, which is a Japanese term from small continuous improvement. It's the operating principle behind everything I do inside my business. I don't ever try to perfect anything. The first place I test a new idea is always my own business. I run it, I watch what happens, and I see whether it creates more leverage or more chaos in my business. Only when I see consistent positive signals, then I bring it to a small number of clients. I watch what works, where people get stuck, and what's adding complexity that shouldn't be there. Then I document the version that works, all the decisions, the order, and the mistakes. That's the process that turned my lived experience into the model you just watched me explaining. So this one question and one principle, take both into next week and you will see more about your business in 48 hours than most people do in a year. So this is what I call Lifestyle Studio, and it's built on one simple idea. Your business should support your life, not consume it. I'm actively improving this through Kaizen as I go. Some parts runs extremely well, other parts are still evolving. And honestly, I would rather build something that's durable and honest than something that's polished but fragile. Because here's what I actually believe. Lots of people are never going to question the business they're running. They'll just keep grinding inside it, getting better and better at a version of a business that's quietly costing their life the whole time. And one day they'll look up and the whole decade is gone. You don't have to be one of those people. That's the whole reason why I made this video. If you want to build your own lifestyle studio, something that gives you more freedom, more enjoyment, and more of the life you actually started this for, just send me a DM on Instagram and we'll take it from there. Also, thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed spending time with me, and I'll see you soon.